Hello there friends, it's Terry here from Cloudy Coral Designs. I am so glad that you are here. For today's card, I used this adorable gingerbread lane stamp set. This stamp set is just fantastic. You can see that there's so many different images to use to create so many different scenes. To start off my card, I stamped the gingerbread house in an alcohol-friendly ink onto smooth white cardstock. I then re-stamped the image a second time. Then I stamped it a third time onto masking paper. The masking paper will get used to mask off areas of the card front during the ink blending process. Okay, so before I blended my background, I fussy cut the gingerbread house off screen. I then adhered it over the gingerbread house on the card front. I am masking this off because I will color this area in later with Copic markers. When I think about winter, I think about the coziness of the season, like gathering as a family around a warm fireplace or just being around each other's company. So when I created this card, I wanted to illustrate a scene of a cozy home. To create the smoke on my scene, I am using Copic markers in the color W00, W0, W1, and W2. Now I need to create a mask to place over the smoke. To do this, I place the masking paper over the smoke and trace the rough outline using a pencil. I then use my fussy cutting scissors to cut out the outline of the smoke, and using the scraps of the masking paper, I created a snow slope to mask off the bottom of my card front. Okay, so now let's talk about the ink blending. Using my blending brush, I went in with Distress Oxide inks in Scattered Straw, Salty Ocean, Chipped Sapphire, and Black Suit. I started off with Scattered Straw on the upper corner of the card front to create a moonlight scene. I then went in with Salty Ocean and Chipped Sapphire. To create a little more interest, I used Black Suit only on areas of the card front where I wanted to create shadows. So I mainly applied the dark ink towards the bottom of the card front. Distress Oxide inks are water-reactive inks, so I like to create an oxidation effect by spritzing water onto the palm of my hand and flicking it onto the blended card front. I then use white iridescent paint to splatter onto the card front and spritz it with one of my favorite shimmer spray. So before I can color in the gingerbread house, I need to remove the masking paper. I really like this part because you get to see the ink background come to life. So now that the card front is completely dry, I started my Copic coloring. For this card, I am using a lot of desaturated colors. I like to use at least 3 markers per color family to help with the blending. So most of the time I'll have a dark tone, a mid-tone, and a light tone. There is a little tiny window stamp that is included in the stamp set. I placed it onto my acrylic block and stamped it twice with black ink on white cardstock. I also colored and fussy cut the images out off screen. So now I'm using my paper trimmer to cut down the card front to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. I also went ahead and used the sentiment from the stamp set and stamped that with black ink on my card front. As a card maker, I love adding dimensional layers onto my cards. So here I am using glossy accent to apply onto the roof, the chimney, the shrubs, and the snow slopes. I then went ahead and sprinkled super fine glitter onto the glossy accents. I like adding extra texture onto my card front because it gives the card a little more interest. So now I popped on the windows using foam tape. I went ahead and die cut a Merry Christmas sentiment from my stash and glued that onto the upper right of the card front. I also glued down some red heart embellishments onto the smoky area. So now for the card base, I used my favorite heavy-duty black cardstock and cut that down to 8 1/2 inches by 4 1/4 inches. I then used my scoreboard to score at 5 1/2 inches. I like to add layers onto my card anywhere that I possibly can, so I applied foam tape onto the card front and adhered that onto the card base. I wanted to add a little more shine to my card, so I applied glossy accents onto the sentiment, as well as the heart on the door and the window glass. And there you have it, the card is now complete. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and please don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe. Until next time, have a wonderfully blessed day. Bye bye.